All right, here's Patrick again, back after the little dog episode. The, problems of filming this high quality video at home. Okay, the point was that yes, we may say that only 3% of the general population has a true reading disability. But that does not mean that the kid at the 4th% or 5th% or 6% or 7th% is going to be a walk in the park as far as learning how to read. Those students will all respond much more like the kids with a true disability than they will sort of normal performing kids. And it's going to take everything and the kitchen sink to get them up and reading proficiently. But we can do it. Now this bottom 3%, boy, those are the truly tough nuts to crack, the kids we put into that dyslexic category. Okay, so 3% but. All right, our third point has to do with the nature of these 25% or 3% that do experience a challenge in beginning to read. Some of those kids have a true biological deficit, okay, a cognitive linguistic deficit. Those are our kids way down at the bottom that makes them that just creates great difficulty, and we'll talk about those deficits in a second in learning to read. Now, there are of course kids who have absolutely normal sort of cognitive functioning as related to reading, but have what we would call an environmental deficit or an environmental problem. Maybe very limited sort of language development in the home. No text, no read alouds, absolutely no exposure to print and so forth. Well, that does make learning to read more difficult when they hit the school years. However, given that there's no biological sort of cause for that, with good intensive instruction, those are going to be a part of this 20% who do respond to that good instruction. And they're not going to be that 3% with the true disability. Okay, now there's also what we would call an instructional deficit or disability. Picture it, a group of normal kids in terms of biology and environment who simply, let's say, get no clear systematic instruction in phonics and beginning decoding. Well, guess what? As a result of that instruction, they will look a lot like kids with biological or environmental deficits. Okay, and that does and has happened. And most of us have probably seen it if we've been around education and research. All right, so it's always worth thinking that there's biological, environmental, and instructional sort of disabilities or obstacles to learning to read. And we want to tease out, of course, a lot of these too work. It's not like you have just one or the other. Some of these stack on top of each other and, of course, become tougher and tougher situations. All right, now let's pick up this biological piece and go to the fourth point, which is the core deficit theory or the core deficit perspective on dyslexia or reading disability. What we know about kids with reading disability is that they tend to show, they struggle with lots of things. And it can be a little difficult to sort of tease out what are causes and what are consequences. There can be multiple causes for sure, but the core deficit perspective, which has great sort of weight in the research world, great kind of a strong consensus around this, says that there could be multiple deficits involved in kids who struggle to learn to read, but one or two of those are true core deficits, and the others kind of spring up around that core. And what are the core deficits? They are phonological in nature. And that means that they have to do with our language processing systems in the brain. You'll be reading specifically about this, well, really in all the pieces, but definitely in the Shaywitz piece. You'll see that there's two phonological deficits that really impede learning to read. One is, I've just abbreviated as PA, phonological awareness, or more specifically phonemic awareness, which will be really the focus of Module 2. And phonemic awareness leads to great difficulty in learning to decode. Just makes it difficult. The whole nature of reading words for early readers are first translating the sounds that the letters make into sounds and then blending those sounds to make words. And that's exactly what a phonological processing deficit impedes. Okay. On the other side, we have a rapid naming deficit. And this has to do with how easily, how quickly, how rapidly we can simply go in and pull out phonologically encoded information. Let's say the colors. We take a kid with a rapid naming deficit who knows the labels for the colors, but they're just slower. As I flash up a red card, they're slower than kids without that deficit of reaching in and pulling it out and responding red, green. Well, this has to do with, as you might expect, reading fluency, the development of automatic word recognition.